A little slow today. Okay, good. It's being recorded. That works.
How's the waiting room? Chock full?
We have one participant, which I think is me.
Excellent.
I'll keep this up so we can see if we have any public comment people, but normally Jerome shows up at least from the Jolt.
All right, well, since we're recording, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call?
Pretty cool ball here.
Mike Jackson, here. Brent Grantham, here.
Brent Chapman.
Jim Sedor. Anya.
Now, Zoa, Nowza,
Nowza. Excused. Okay, let's see, any changes to the agenda tonight? Okay,
Everybody get a chance to read through the meeting minutes from October 9th.
motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 9th? Moved. Second, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from October 9th, 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, approval of minutes done.
Three board member reports.
Just follow up on our last month, last month or 2 months ago, we heard from one of your interns about the issue of pre-migration. And I just got an email with a news report about the same topic, with several Pacific Northwest experts talking about the difference between pre-migration and a couple of other terms. Range expansion is one of them. I got thinking about Brent and to a certain extent my experience. We've been bringing ornamentals from probably the same hardiness zone, 8 or 8B, into our communities and into our yards for a long time. And on one hand, biologically, in terms of hardiness, they're supposed to be able to survive in our environment. But environmentally, is there a significant impact by introducing these non-native species who, although they should survive based on climate in our communities, my understanding of hardiness is it's primarily a cold thing. There are some other temperature things, but the Pacific Northwest has a unique drought in the growth time, summer, which is, I mean, I've heard that Chicago and New York get more rain than we do. It's just in the summer. And we, although we're known for our rainfall, it comes in the winter. And so even though a tree may be able to withstand the temperature that we have here in our environment, it has to be able to survive a 90-day drought, which is a challenge. And then there's the whole issue of insects and disease and soil and mycorrhizae and all that sort of stuff. So as we are hearing from these experts, my understanding is that they're talking about assisted migration on a forest level, macro level, kind of a forestry level. I was taught that the difference between agriculture, forestry, and horticulture is forestry, agriculture is extensive, horticulture is intensive. So horticulture cares about the individual plant, the silvics. Forestry and agriculture care about the population, the large quantity. So, but then again, there's this straw that breaks the camel's back. At what point do we introduce non-native species into a biological community. And it's kind of the tipping point where I don't know if it ever exceeds the native population, but is that a concern that the tree board should have as we work with the city on what kind of trees should be planted in Tumwater, beyond the issue of are they hardy? And Alyssa's intern touched on that, and I had some follow-up questions for her. I don't know if you'll have a
Still waiting to
chance.
hear back from them. There was a death on campus, and they knew someone who was also injured,
Yeah.
so they've been having a hard time recently.
Well, and Brent raised the question, should we primarily look at this one factor called acclimating function or quotient or something like that? What, all of us have expertise in different areas. What are your thoughts about the issues of, let me just say, when I worked at the Forest Nursery, we were very concerned about seed source, seed zones. So we attempted not only to select seed from the same elevation, latitude, and we had seed zones all over the state. We even had talked about aspect. Is this a south-facing aspect or a north-facing aspect of the same slope? In terms when it came to selecting Douglas fir seed to plant back on that site. So we attempted to genetically plant back what was there, so that it was adapted to that site. It should grow best. Now we're hearing people tell us because of climate change and such, we should deviate from that practice. And, we're talking about, is that something we should be talking to the residents about? And should we somehow, and I've sent it out to Ben Thompson at DNR, is there any way that we can find out where Home Depot and Fred Meyer, where are they getting these trees that they're selling to our residents?
Oregon.
I assume from
Like 80%
Monrovia,
of the stock comes from Oregon.
which isn't a huge difference in environment.
Oh, the Willamette Valley, it's pretty distinct from here.
Okay. So are we, maybe you, Trent, with your, years of landscape experience, or maybe you, Brent, with your capital thing, when we buy trees from the Willamette Valley, do they die? Or do we see more insects and disease? And I don't know that we're tracking, anyone is tracking, okay, this tree came from Willamette, this tree came from Skagit, this tree came from Thurston County. And see which of them grows better, or are all of these dying, or, that, I don't, I've asked them if they have, DNR has any information on that, but is that something, we would have a better success rate in Tumwater if we paid attention to that, or should we somehow get the money to start tracking that? Where did the city get these trees from? And not only the nursery, but where did the nursery get them from? And then 50 years from now, or then, are they still alive? Or ideally, these trees came from Skagit, these trees came from Willamette, and these are doing a lot better. So we should be buying from there. Anyone have any experience?
That's a great experiment for WSU graduate students or University of Washington graduates.
Well, of course, they're gonna be around 2 to 4 years, and then, we're talking 50.
Oh, a professor would have the long.
Yeah, okay.
Over multiple graduate students.
And I don't know if we have any relationship, you have some staff that work at the,
I have a coworker who, is in the wetland science program. He teaches very concentrated on wetland science, so I don't know if he has connections outside of that.
I think that would be very difficult to do.
I do too. I mean, I agree that this is a research project, long-term.
Right.
And,
And I think it would depend on whether, are we talking about just ornamentals, because ornamentals are like
Native to someplace.
deforestation.
yeah. And I think, you
And
know,
how do you track, like, somebody shipping up a bunch of seedlings, Oregon, Gadget, and planting them, selling them 20 years later?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and so can we justify some of these experts saying, because of climate change, we should be getting our stock for planting trees in Tumwater from a more drought tolerant or heat extreme nursery, seed source, not just nursery. We're talking about seed source, as I understand it. And that's the question I asked Ben, and he hasn't gotten back. I mean, he acknowledged that he got the message, but the person he passed it on to hasn't gotten back to me yet. That was last week I wrote to him. But I thought maybe, you know, in the group's experience here, we'd have some idea.
I always lean on a mix of strategies. I don't like to throw my eggs in one basket.
Sure.
So I'm a huge proponent of promoting native plants
Yes.
and ecosystems, and even in an urban environment, and where we have the space for that and the habitat for that, I would strongly encourage that. But individual homes where they may not make up an ecosystem or habitat, I think that personally, it makes sense to diversify, bring in different species of plants, so they're probably not native here, that are tolerant of our upcoming climate changes. But I always lean towards multiple strategies, because at the end, something's bound to work better than something else.
Yeah, but if 80% of what we're doing fails, I mean, we can do better than that, I hope. But
Yeah.
you know, and I
I
think
wouldn't think that would be the case.
a challenge, again, you know, we're talking 60 and 120-year rotations on trees. What was planted and what was available 10 years ago may not be available now. New varieties and different nurseries, and nurseries fail, and they become conglomerates rather than the mom and pop operation. So what we used to get from Thurston County is no longer available, and you have to go to Boring, Oregon, or.
There's very little production in this county,
Exactly.
and one of the biggest ones is no longer in existence, Lawyer Nursery.
Right.
Yeah, Elm Popular.
I used to go there every spring and buy seedlings from Lawyer. The nursery manager was a coworker. And, I know 40 years ago, I was for reforestation consultant for McCaw's Indian Reservation in the northwest corner of the Olympics. And they chose to plant about 10,000 sequoia. And,
Seed those.
yeah. And I taught them how to grow them. Yeah. So I can get in touch with them and say, are these sequoias still alive? Because I'm reading that Pacific Northwest, some communities are saying plant sequoia, because it's drought tolerant and it's, you know, it's hardy, and it'll be a good tree for, I mean, the wood's good, insect and disease resistant, fire resistant. But
Most of the trees that are planted for forestation are planted as production trees, right?
Exactly.
Even if it's like 60. So, I mean, it's from. But I thought one of the things, I think it was that, that YouTube interview thing, they were talking about the Western,
yes,
which, totally am saying that.
you're seeing the death and decline of western red cedar here in Thurston
Yeah.
County.
Just around.
Not the only species suffering, big leaf maple.
Yeah. Mentioned that in the YouTube also. And which makes a significant percentage of our tree species on our inventory.
Yeah.
Those two.
We're gonna have more oaks in our future. Besides our native oak. That one for sure, but
Yeah.
other species of oaks.
And
Just making that prediction because of their drought tolerance.
I think we've been planting more oaks, red oaks in the
A lot
landscape.
of people don't like oaks because they drop.
Yeah,
People like a non-messy tree.
yeah. Do we have a contact in the city that is responsible for selecting the trees that the city plants and would have time and interest in learning more about the source of the trees that are being planted by the city in the city?
So in our Parks Department, we have a certified arborist who I think is retiring in April, and Chase works underneath him. I think many of you met Chase at the Arbor Day last year. He's very enthusiastic, eager, I imagine so. Those two don't make decisions for every property in the city, but they do for anywhere that has a building or a park. In terms of other properties, there's not one main person that's making that decision, but in the future with the urban forester staff person, I imagine they would play that role.
Aren't street trees just chosen by a landscape architect typically for that project?
From a list, if it's in street trees, or if it's in the street or the right of way.
And does the city have contracts with particular nurseries? Or
Not
is that
to
the
my knowledge.
responsibility of the landscape architect?
The landscape architect, normally under the master contract for the project, will figure that out.
So the contractor who ultimately is the one that says, this is what we're buying, and gets it from XYZ nursery.
Okay, well, he probably gets it from a plant broker who will get plants.
Okay.
Is there a way for us to, is there a vehicle for us to incentivize preferential treatment for selecting assisted migration type stock?
For the city planting it,
Yes.
when we're back at the street tree list, yes. There were very few natives in there, though. For the Parks Department, we can give them a list of preferred trees and their sources, and that would probably be helpful to them, for them to know where they could source the plants. It gets rougher for doing that with the general public because we can't promote any one particular business unless we have a contract with them or they're a nonprofit. So that gets fuzzy.
Is there any sort of collaboration between the cities in contracting for tree trees?
Not that I know of.
I mean, forestry, IFA is a cooperative nursery for collective timber companies that raises their reforestation stock collaboratively from the seed.
It didn't last very long, but Olympia had a neighborhoods program where they bought seedlings and had their own city nursery. So they had a lot of control over what they were growing, species diversity, and where it came from, you know, that they would give to neighborhoods for people to plant.
When was this?
Maybe 10 years ago when Joe Roush was managing it. So it went away when they had to reshuffle their organization at the city and their finances. But I thought it was an amazing program.
Who is that?
Joe Roush was the urban forester at the time. He works in stormwater now, or water.
Here in Tumwater?
No, city of Olympia.
Olympia.
But they had their own, right behind their Olympia facility, they had a city nursery with drip irrigation and amazing, you know, all, not all, but many of the trees off of their recommended street tree list, they were growing themselves in a nursery right in the middle of town. So they had a lot of control over the inventory and where it came from and how they produced it.
Yeah, Oak Harbor, we talked about this about a year ago. They have a citizens, it's Gary Oak Society, yeah.
Oh, cool.
And they, citizens as a club, go out and collect the acorns and grow them in their backyards. And then give them to other citizens and the city to expand native oak trees in Oak Harbor, Whidbey Island. And they've been doing it for 40 years, I think. So it's kind of a club. But it's I mean,
That's a long haul commitment there.
you've got 10 trees, you know, 10, starts out as, Ridge and I planted 12 Gary Oaks last October. Acorns we picked up in our cul-de-sac. So, you know, we hope to have 6 oak trees this summer that will grow. And, it's certainly small scale and it's not something that the city could do, but it could be done by a native plant society, or something, but that's a different issue than what we're talking about in terms of, on a larger scale, encouraging, say, incentivizing, and ensuring that the genetics of the trees that we're planting are, or most likely to succeed in Tumwater. And, you know, if we could contribute, you know, maybe continue to do some research. I'll work with DNR, talk with them anyway, and encourage the youth. It's an issue through Ben, probably, through Ben Thompson. See if they can make that a research graduate project.
There's also the trade industry, Washington State Nursery Landscape Association, Washington Association of Landscape Professionals, they have a lot of clout at the state level. In fact, they sponsors funds for the university's new research guided by the industry. So that's another avenue for direct influence.
Right.
Well, that's a high-level challenge, Jim.
Mhm,
Way to break the ice.
Yeah. Just trying to follow.
Here, we're just trying to plant a tree and water during the summer.
Try to live 50 years to see that.
Yeah, I won't live to see it, but it's something that needs to get started, you know, so that we learn what's going on. And, you know, the interesting thing, you know, Brett, is the exotics that we bring into our communities and our backyards, and we plant, and they thrive in some cases. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 90% of them don't, but a few of them do. And what do we say to that in this issue of how scientific, how proactive do we have to be about adaptability?
Don't shift the species, nature will do it for us.
Slowly.
And that's more likely though.
And that's what these folks say is, you know, they're just concerned that climate's gonna change faster than nature can do it.
But even so, the species that are most opportunistic are gonna be here.
Certainly the glaciers, you know, destroyed the northern forests, and they're back. So how did that happen? I mean, naturally.
Some of us may lack tree of heaven, but it's gonna still be really happy in 100 years.
Palomia, tomentosa.
Considering geologic time now, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
The blink,
Huh.
human existence is a blink of an eye. Okay, well, I just came over
Thanks for
through my
sharing that.
computer, and I thought, well, this helps me understand what's going on, and some more people are involved. And there's some opinion in here. Of course, apparently there's some work being done. And one of the suggestions was, you know, should we be planting, more drought-tolerant varieties of red cedar in particular, western red cedar, and a couple communities are doing that, and a couple forestry organizations, timber companies are starting to do
Are there
that.
cultivars or strains promoted as more drought tolerant, western red cedar?
I don't know that there's strains. I think the seed source, you know, western red cedar has a huge range. So they're taking, my understanding is they're taking western red cedar seed sources that are from a drier, hotter seed zone than this, or than Washington, western Washington. And they're planting them there in anticipation that they're going to need to be more drought tolerant, more heat tolerant in the lifespan of a western red cedar, 120 years.
Who say are they available to the general public or even the industry?
I don't
Well, it
know.
was, I think it was a couple of professors, wasn't it? that was-
Well, in a couple cities, I think.
It'd be interesting to know where they got their plants from.
And, you know, what is, are cities really interested in reforestation? I mean, maybe they have city forests. So they're testing it out, or are they small timber companies?
So, is there a way, just as a starting point to gather baseline information, is there a way for us to stipulate that, the seed source that landscape architects draw from be made available to us?
And I don't know that they even know.
But if we put it on them, that's their issue to figure out and provide us with that information for
When we were-
planting on city property.
like when we were doing a request for proposal or a
Yes.
request for bids.
Put that in there that you will share the seed source that you select from, just so that we have some idea of what the current situation even is.
Run that question by our city attorney and ask.
Do we have a way to record that information that will survive in our new database?
I'd be surprised if you'd be, they'd have to come from the grower.
Yes. And are they getting it from a broker? I mean, DNR and Weyerhaeuser, they know where their seed comes from.
Right.
So, yeah, do the growers, do the ornamental growers know? They care. What are they selling us? Yeah, are they just selling us a pretty tree
Right.
that grew in their nursery?
They're not gonna get a tree from a,
Right, but you can make them care by
Yeah.
putting it as a stipulation of their RFP, right?
Well-paying enough job.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might get no bidders. But we can try. I'll have it as an action item for myself to ask the city attorney if that would be, something she would deem legal and acceptable.
I'll follow up with DNR and I've worked with a couple nurseries. What's this one right here at the bottom of the airport? What's that? Or it's the same as the Plant Place, I think it is. They have two outlets.
So we got trees.
They have a commercial place down here that I've bought some stuff from them and talked with them, and I know that they bring in stuff from Monrovia. But I'll talk to their people just because I have a relationship with them as well, DNR, but we're not interested in our ornamental issues, so. We know what they do for seed source. We track it. But I don't think Home Depot or Fred Meyer's gonna care.
It's the cheapest and sell for the most.
Yeah.
right.
Okay, well, maybe we can start the process.
Starting point.
That's a good suggestion.
Does anybody have anything else? Coordinators report?
Last month, so there's 2 items on here. I can't remember if I told you all last time or not, so if I did, just say, move on. I went on a tour of, the McIntosh Family Forest with Mike, last month, and I learned a lot. That was very helpful for me. Thank you, Mike. It's also nice to get away from my cubicle in the basement.
Yeah.
Where's that vote?
Pennsylvania, next to the park.
Gotcha.
Very helpful for me, thank you. I also have scheduled, 2 of them have dates. One of them is yet to be scheduled, training with DNR for our staff. 3 different trainings, one on, the principles of urban forestry. That'll be a 4-hour-long class, basic tree biology, and, then a full-day pruning workshop.
And Robert's doing that?
And Roberts is doing all of them, for free for the city, which is great. We're gonna have probably about 20 people in each class, from all the different departments that touch trees, and those who theoretically think of trees on plants. Maybe not the pruning for them, but the other ones for them.
Would it be appropriate for any of us who have time to sit in on those?
I can ask Em if she'd be comfortable with that, but I don't, don't see why not.
What's up with me all the time?
I'll ask. Can, board members? will be in here, except for the full-day pruning workshop. We're trying to find the right location for that has bathrooms, water, pavilion, and lots of different kinds and ages of trees to learn techniques for.
That's a good thing to do, but do we get brownie points as a part of our urban forestry plan to provide?
Exactly why I'm doing it. Those
That's the reason you're saying.
precise lessons are tied to actions in the plan.
Yes, thank you, very good.
It's something that the DNR does.
They do this, yep. They provide free of charge training to local municipalities for their staff specifically. So once I learned that and scoured the plan and found the things that we needed to talk about, we got it set up.
Good job.
And is
Nice.
it something we, Tumwater might do, or DNR might encourage Tumwater to do every 5 years?
I think doing it regularly, but not like every year would be reasonable. I don't want to exhaust M just for us. But I do think having it on a regular schedule, perhaps it would be good to talk to our HR department and see how long people stay, to figure out a good rotation so that, like, if there's an average tenure for folks in those kinds of positions, matching it with that.
I believe your staff told us that there were a couple of staff that were studying to get their
Chase.
arborist license.
Chase is trying to get, his,
This might, there's continuing education credits or something.
the consultant is, continuing to work on the, inventory and the urban forest maintenance report. They're now on the report side, so we've closed up the inventory aspect. Data is solid, can't be touched anymore. I went in and changed your stuff. Hopefully they're not mad at me because it was past the date, but,
Did we get all the inventory data we were hoping for through the volunteer?
there was one volunteer who didn't follow through, but everybody else did. And that was Tumwater Boulevard, unfortunately, which is like one of the roughest ones.
So we didn't get the data?
We got data for most of the areas of the city that the city maintains. There was one part of Tumwater Boulevard, that I had a volunteer signed up. They were going to do it. They were having some tree keeper issues. I helped them through that, but then I think it just, I was grateful that we had such a return rate.
Yeah, yeah.
Has it been done now, or do you
Uh,
want somebody?
It being done right now is irrelevant because they've closed that chapter and now they're analyzing the data. So making any changes to it at this point would, kind of make them have to redo work that they've already moved forward with.
But at some point, you know, we've talked about 6 months from now, when the city plants 10 trees or something, someone in the city is going to have the power to go in and
At points and put in that data.
add that, or correct mistakes that have been made, or remove trees that have been run over by cars and stuff like that.
And I did have a meeting with our utilities and, streets departments, not really those folks. It's transportation and engineering and water resources and sustainability, but the folks that are working on operations, and, started the conversation with them about, a work order process that ties in with the inventory. Parks does not use the same work order process, so, and then community development doesn't do. So we're gonna have to figure out like 3 different methods of making sure that people are keeping this updated. So I'm on my way with the first group that has a established work order system. I gave them some data. I'm waiting to hear back, how it can work with their, system. But, the consultant is working on the report. That report will include the maintenance schedule, the cost estimates, the iTree analysis, and the potential planting areas. Had quite a bit of conversation with other staff about the potential planting areas. They have a stormwater priority that had different weightings that I talked with, if you all remember Dave from our stormwater division, in depth about that, about the, racial and social equity, aspects, and also about the urban heat island, how we put all of that together, what parts we use, how they're going about, prioritizing those areas, and then also what those areas being prioritized means for the city, because this is someone on a computer looking at satellite images and trying to find the best place for a tree. All of these are gonna need to be ground truthed. So they're the first step in working on planting those areas. They're gonna separate it into city-owned property, potential planting area, and privately owned property, potential planting area, so that we can see those neighborhoods or those areas where we need to give out more trees, and those areas that we can plant more trees, and other businesses and property owners that we can work with as well. So it'll give us a good idea. We'll go on the ground whenever we're trying to do this and make sure that it is actually a good spot for trees. They're looking from satellite images, but like trying not to have potential planting areas that are like on asphalt. Like they'll be able to narrow that down, but overhead lines are things that are protected by Homeland Security, so we don't always know exactly where those are and if that's going to be a conflict. So it's a step in the right direction. We'll have to take additional steps from there in terms of the potential planting.
Does it look like that project?
It has to be done by April 20th.
Oh, soon then.
Yeah, and I was thinking of you specifically. We, because we don't want to reforest prairie habitat because it's its own unique habitat. That was part of eliminating areas from the potential planting areas, since we took out wetlands, but we kept riparian buffers and wetland buffers. We took out areas that have are in our habitat conservation plan for gophers, pocket gophers. If we had everywhere that had gopher soils, we would have no areas to plant the trees. So we initially put that in, took it out. There were a couple other things that we removed: ball fields, cemeteries, things that are normally removed from this kind of process. So that was a whole thing, and now that's closed and they're working on that. So I'll continue to have updates on what this is. I should have a draft soon.
But are there, in the urban growth area, we have native prairies?
There's no GIS layer that tells me where those are.
And can we, is it our intent to maintain those prairies as without canopy? Or are we required to create a canopy over those native prairies?
So I'm treating prairies very carefully because Brad is in charge of the HCP, and I'm not fully aware of all of the things that demands, and that's an agreement with the federal government. So it's not my intention to afforest prairie. I'm not opposed to putting a number of trees, but not like turning it into forest, and I wanted to make sure that that was not on the table because it's a unique habitat that's really having a hard time, period. We can add oaks there, and we can know that they're there outside of this.
Can we take the native prairies out of the inventory so we don't get?
Without knowing where they are, I can't. We did a lot of GIS, and I did some digging to try to find out if anybody, if Fish and Wildlife, if anybody had GIS shapes that would tell us where that is. We tried with the soil, that was not going to work. We tried with occupied gopher habitat, that could work. But without knowing where to exclude, we can't exclude it. We can have, difficult without the data.
Fish and Wildlife and Forest Service both have maps of oak prairie habitat in Thurston County and Pierce County.
So they have the lands that they manage that are prairies, like Mima Mounds. There's data on that. That's not in Tumwater. So
Right.
There was none that I could find from either agency that showed prairie being designated in the city of Tumwater. That would be helpful to us for this project.
I've seen some papers where they map out, this environment, this prairie habitat, and assuming that the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife, for example, can give you, that data.
Sometimes, my understanding is that for areas where there are endangered species, sometimes they don't make that data public because there could be poaching or issues with that being made public. If they have it, they may keep it close for good reasons.
But we may, as a state,
It would be a public document if it comes to me. It would be subject to disclosure, and then it would be out.
but we don't need to disclose that this is wildlife habitat. We would just say this is native prairie, and therefore not, so just like we say, well, we have different canopy, what's the term, percentages for different parts of the city. I would think we could say we have a certain canopy requirement or maximum for native prairies within the urban growth area of Tumwater. And these are those areas, so we don't get penalized for leaving those prairies, maintaining the prairies. hope that we can find a way to do that.
I don't have any updates on the planting plans for those sites yet. I spoke with Grant today, and he said that he's working with some other staff at the golf course to see if he can expand that area so that it can connect with the wetland and be a larger project. That's the last I've heard. And the last, the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative wrote a letter and approved the letter today that's going to get sent to DNR asking for a pause of timber sales in Thurston County. So that's the other part of my job. I did not write the letter, but the elected officials associated with that group requested and passed it. So that will be just flagging that for your knowledge. It's a letter.
Why?
Because they want to protect mature, structurally the legacy forests. They want to make sure that the legacy forests aren't included in it. And, sorry, pause on timber sales of mature forests, not all timber sales.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
And my last update, sorry, I thought I would be faster with this, but next month's meeting may be rescheduled to February 15th, which is a Thursday, at 6:30 p.m. to facilitate a joint meeting of the Tree Board and the Historic Preservation Commission to discuss findings by the city's arborist regarding the Gary Oak Heritage Tree on Old Highway 99.
That require us to shift the whole meeting?
We can have two, but I've been told Tree Board's coming to that one, not they're coming to Tree Board.
They're making the presentation to other groups?
This would be, no, this is a conversation for you all to have jointly, about those results and what that means and how the Tree Board can be involved in whatever those results mean.
Just the consultant and the tree board?
The Historic Preservation Commission. So a board similar to yours, but focused on historic preservation because it's a historic tree and a heritage tree. So Old Highway 99 going down towards the airport, it's a very, meeting would likely be here or in city chambers, city council chambers. When I get more information on that, this is like a tentative, might happen, but it also might have happened this month, but it didn't. So I forgot to tell you all that for this month, and it didn't happen. So, but here's some foresight for
No loss.
February.
Just, to cap off what Jim was talking about, really is, all the stuff that they put together on the inventory, when they get around to planting trees, those specific trees in 2020, probably 2025, you could actually try to get the seed source information for just as a start.
Yeah, and we could, if we are able to get that seed source data for trees that we are planting, we can add that into GIS as another data point that we can pull reports from in the future, as long as computers and GIS still exist 30 years from now.
Because it's so hard, like I say, to get trees anyway. Or in the end, you're going out every place to get whatever you can get. And you can see some of the developments where you go and look what the architect recommended and go out and see how many of those 128 trees are exactly what the plan says.
Built-in diversity. Built-in diversity of seed source.
And that, in particular, is something that we're gonna see when I do show you some of the inventory stuff that's been, pulled out, is there are a lot of unassigned trees from, projects that were planned and trees that GIS went out to get a GPS point for. This is a tree, it's real. But they couldn't tell if it was what was on the plans or something else, so they've left it undefined. It's kind of a pain, now. You were going through and finding some of the undefined trees and trying to identify them. There's more than 1,000 unsigned trees in our inventory that were associated with new projects where we have the GPS point, we know there's a tree there, but what kind of tree? No idea. GIS doesn't have tree ID experience, and they didn't want to put the wrong information in, so
Maybe we can help with that in the summer,
yeah,
or when they're in bloom, in spring.
at least 1,000.
It's like the pruning classes. It'd be nice to have some of those contractors that are out there pruning, that have been told by somebody how to prune, and they don't have a clue.
hired somebody last week to do it.
Yeah, right,
But if we could do 100 trees a year,
yeah.
That would be great.
Historic.
Yeah,
as well as all new trees.
May not get down to the cultivar, but at least species.
Yeah,
I mean, some of them I was going through and just being like, well, that's a maple, so it's got an acer species, and that's the most specific it is.
Right.
Because I don't have greater expertise on that.
Like a good Plant ID challenge.
Okay, just because you said that's something that you all may know about, you may not know about, and I don't know exactly when it is this year, but there's something called the City Nature Challenge. The county is involved in it. There's an app that you can download on your phone called iNaturalist. That's very helpful for for determining, what the thing is that you're looking at in terms of, animals, plants, fungus, whatever. There's normally efforts, it's called a BioBlitz, not the best word, but an effort to identify as many things as you possibly can, and the county has a thing, associated with the Nisqually research, so we could time that well and have more, interactions or more hits on that, and maybe the county would win a prize, I don't know. But just a fun thing to know in general, and I can, so that's Google Lens. I can talk to you all about it offline, and it's definitely not board business.
better than Google Lens.
You can get research grade, multiple people. It's used also for science. In past years, species that people thought to be extinct were found and realized were not extinct in certain urban areas. It's done all over the world now. Helpful, and yes, better than Google Lens. iNaturalist. If you want to be friends on there, you can be friends with me and see all of the salamander pictures that I took.
Well, and when I walk my dog and I see a tree with a tag on it, I take a picture of it and I note the location. I think, we should all do that. If there's a tag hanging on the tree identifying what kind it is, let's record it. And, hopefully all of us can have access to Freekeeper and give that information to you and give you the number. All we have to do is give you the number of the tree and here's what the tag said.
When we're done with those consultants, we will likely not be keeping the Treekeeper software, but putting it in our own in-house GIS. There's fees associated with keeping it in there, and we can do the same thing. Because we're working with that consultant, that's what they use. We'll be transitioning it, and that we can make public, no problem.
Will that be a Survey 123 platform, or,
It could be.
do you know? Okay.
Yeah. I'm done.
Public comment?
Jerome, if you would like to speak, would you raise your digital hand, please? Normally doesn't.
All right, Arbor Day discussion.
Yes. I need you all to discuss some things, make some decisions so that I can do some groundwork between now and our next meeting, please.
What decisions do you need to have made?
Have it outlined in the memo. Just for the tree board to consider. You all could discuss these and come up with some guidance, that either you yourself want to work on or you would like me to work on. Maybe we all work on things together.
Realigning the timing suggestion, seems very common sense, and I am in support.
Highlight where that is, or what the suggestion is.
First question on actions for tree board to consider on page 2.
Last year, the Arbor Day event started an hour after the Earth Day event, and it caused some confusion. So now we're proposing here for consideration to start them at the same time.
Because
Because
It's
we've been
confused.
asked to, so, because people get confused about what time either of them start because they're at different times
but they're two different events.
at the same
At the
location.
same location. Would we create more confusion by
Don't think
having
so.
people come and then say, oh, yeah,
Here's your shovel.
yeah.
I just came for a tree.
Yeah.
We get different audiences. It's mostly high school students that are very involved with the Earth Day program. And then we get, sometimes high school students, but other folks that are coming for the trees. At least that was what I witnessed last year.
But what I thought in the past has been kind of a good idea, because the Earth Day people came and set all our stuff up before we got there, and then they left. And then we were there to do our public interaction. Kind of have two different, they're not really two different audiences, but the Earth Day people aren't making a presentation and giving away stuff. They're taking volunteers and going someplace to do it. Whereas we're staying in place and giving away trees and talking to people about planting trees. My impression was that worked well. Tell me why we should meet at the same time.
Asked nicely by the people that are setting stuff up for us.
And that's the Earth Day people?
The Earth Day, Park Foundation, and Parks have asked us to please do it at the same time.
So if they don't set up for us, we usually come an hour early.
So because I came last year, was it that the picnic tables had moved? Because otherwise, I set it up with help from you all unloading the truck. Not sure what the other setup was.
I thought they hung up the banners and stuff. Did we do that? You did that. Okay. And we're supposed to come an hour early to do that.
And you all are volunteers for Arbor Day. You're not required to do anything at any particular time. It's at your discretion. I'll be there an hour early to set up and to unload.
An hour early from whenever we
Whenever it
choose to
starts.
start.
Yeah.
That's directly related to consideration number 4, work out volunteer staffing by the tree board for the event.
And we've had years when everybody came, all the tree board came. So,
In some years, we intentionally staggered it because
yes,
we found that
yeah.
there was like not enough audience for the number of tree board members.
And in the past, I think you've asked, when can you come? Yeah. You've signed up for
But
1, 2, or 3 hours, yeah. So what is your need?
I would prefer to have things easiest with parks and just have it at the same time. We don't have anything that we need to reprint with different times. I'm gonna set up whenever. I think it is actually the same time that we had done before. They would just be joining us at the same time. They were asked to delay theirs. They would start an hour prior to the other jurisdictions that are also working with Park Foundation for Earth Day. So they've been asked to change their time, and then we're being asked to kind of do the same time, which is later on a weekend.
Okay, my memory is that they started at 9. Their event officially started at 9. And we had scheduled the tree board to come at 9 and set up, but we didn't start Arbor Day till 10, and it went from 10 to 12. And Earth Day, I think, ended about the same time. But they had, or somebody organized pizza and food for
Parks
everybody.
Department. Parks Department organizes the food.
For everybody.
Technically intended for the volunteers, but we're considered volunteers too.
So you think it's less confusing and easier for so let me.
So every time the city makes a Facebook post about Earth Day and Arbor Day, they have to say 2 different times, and it gets confusing for people to figure out when they're showing up. If it's all one consistent time and they come to see us and we have the Arbor Day banner in front of our table that's already there that I've set up, I don't know why that would be more confusing. I think it would be less confusing. And it's actually us starting at the same time because they've pushed the event back an hour. So it's the same for us. It's just,
So rather than them meeting at 8, I mean, there are people coming at 8 and setting up, and then their event starting at 9, and we come to set up at 9, and our event starts at 10. They're gonna set up at 9.
we would all set up at 9.
We would all set up at 9, and then the events would start at 10. and they're gonna finish in 2 hours. So we're not changing
No,
our schedule.
but since we have been staggered in the past.
But, uh,
I think the public is, my experience, we used to meet at the library,
Right.
and we didn't get a very good turnout. It was kind of whoever happened to be coming to the library that day. And that was independent of the Earth Day, people who met someplace else, who maybe even a different day. But now, since the last 3 years, we've been meeting together at the historical park. And that's worked, and if Earth Day can get their stuff done in 2 hours, then great, or 3 hours. And we just continue to do our 3 hour, and at 12 o'clock, and as I recall, we run out of trees close, and there's not many more people coming, because the publicity that you've done, everybody knows this is over at 12. And usually the excess are taken by the Earth Day people, who are
Earth Day
finishing
people,
their project and they're taking.
Tree board people.
tree board people, there was a gentleman last year who knew, I think Mike, that took a couple, because I don't have an irrigated place to store them afterwards, so it behooves us to make sure that they all get,
move them on.
You don't want
They'll
to
get
bring these
adopted.
back to the city.
I think I brought one back for a coworker who planted it in a wetland. I don't want them to die. At my last place of employment, when we did tree giveaways, we were very stingy on giving one to each person and verifying address, and we always ended up with at least 20 trees that died because someone moved them and the irrigation didn't work, and it just very wasteful.
But we don't know our survival rate.
No, but I can tell you those 20 die every year. Time, we'll, try out the same time this year, and if it turns out to be a big issue, we'll revisit. And 2, decide on what will be done at the event, what species of plants you'd like to offer, determine what vendors may be able to provide those resilient stock, and review the list of handouts or other giveaway materials that was handed out last year. We start with trees, what species, or it doesn't even plant species, because I know
I know this isn't one of the questions, but I'll raise it. Are we on agreement we're gonna stick with the gallon pots? Be clear then.
We got,
whatever plants you all decide, and if you all know places to get them for more resilient seed stock, I'm happy to reach out to them once those things are identified and ask them if they have 1 gallon.
Or similar.
Yeah.
They can be quarts or,
we're buying gallon.
yeah. I just want to be clear, because it's not,
We're buying,
you didn't broach that
we're
question.
planning it.
I figured that was a solid, permanent decision.
Just want to confirm that for the record.
Yep.
I thought it was a good decision.
1 gallon's forever. Except for the mix-up after so many confirmations about the dwarf western red cedar, there wasn't an issue. I went with the plant place in Tumwater, asked them, I also requested quotes from, Town Native Plants, got a better price, in Tumwater, went with him. He confirmed that he would get all of the things, and then, less than a week before, didn't realize that it was dwarf western red cedar that we had specifically requested, even though all of the emails back and forth said that. Guys.
We gave away native, or we gave away western red cedar rather than.
But there wasn't an issue. I was not trying to, go in as depth as we've been discussing about seed stock. I'm intimidated by that, quite honestly, so I would like some assistance if that's what we're, planning on doing for this year.
Just to know where the Thurston County Conservation District is, their plants, you know, they do a big.
They raise them.
Sale every year.
They have a large
I'm not
nursery.
sure.
I've been a customer for many years, but I've never
Yeah.
thought about where they came from.
I don't know
They
what,
come from the fairgrounds, it's like you get your milk at the grocery store.
Yeah.
There is a group that goes on like, site's gonna be,
native
Native
plant
Plant
salvage.
Salvage Project.
yeah.
Their inventory is very, or species diversity is very limited.
But it's very popular.
Yeah.
It's hundreds of people who line up to get those.
Yeah, you want to order ahead of time, you don't want to show up at the fairgrounds, shop that, and just saying.
I learned last year.
I was impressed. Went out there and,
I think the question is, are we gonna offer like all natives or not all natives, or are we gonna do trees or shrubs, or a mix of trees and shrubs?
We,
Big trees, little trees, and
last year we got, 1 gallon pots of, I think it was 4 different species. And we also gave out the wildflower seeds, so
which were very popular.
they're very popular. The seeds were very, very popular.
Do you have a source for those this year?
I got them from Territorial Seeds. I bought them, not wholesale or anything, buy those again. We have approximately $1,000 budget is what I've allocated since, Tree Board wasn't dedicated any money in this budget. That was the amount of money that you all normally had gotten, so I've just taken that out of my budget for, Arbor Day. If we could stay within that, that would be great for me in terms of
how much
budgeting.
was each seed packet? Or,
We got 50 last year, and I think it was $3 a packet or something like
no, yeah, that's average like $5 each wholesale, you
that. I
know,
want to say it was under 7, yeah. 5
So
or
that-
6.
$700. There's some wiggle room, we're getting more seeds, it sounds like.
If that's what you all decide.
I'm an advocate for at least one, if not the majority of what we give away being small. My impression is the people who come, want a tree, are not forestry people. They are individual, yeah. But we don't want to be giving them a big leaf maple if they've got a postage stamp lawn. And I know some years, Mike, I think we've gotten red osier dogwood, as one of the plants to give away, if not a tree. And that's when we stopped saying we're giving away trees, we say we give away plants. I think we could give away Mahonia, Oregon grape, as a beautiful year-round ornamental native plant. And I think some people would be happy with that, particularly if they've got a postage stamp.
All Mahonia or the short Mahonia,
No. The short, I would recommend. The tall will get 6, 8, I mean, they'll plant it in front of their front window and it'll cover the front window in 10 years. But they can cut it. But, yeah,
Pacific wax myrtle?
yeah.
drought tolerant. And it's certainly broadening our range of native. They always like flowering trees, so I'll just put on the table either our native crabapple or native hawthorn. Probably not the hawthorn, people don't like thorns, but
We had crabapple
we
last
got the
year.
native crabapple.
There was, Saskatoon serviceberry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
was hot last year.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted that.
I don't think they really knew what it was, but,
Had pretty flowers and pretty fall color that they get big,
and
so.
it didn't get big. And it was deciduous and they,
And I'm always a huge fan of vine maple, they just do so well in so many different places.
it's a little large, but, and it's, yeah. I've got, I've had a hedge of it, and now I've got I planted about a dozen in my yard about 25 years ago, and there are about 6 left. And they come down in the snow. But they're 40 feet tall now.
That gives us 3 deciduous and 2 evergreen, and something a little bigger, and something a lot smaller, and sounds like a pretty good range, huh?
If we can find it.
You can
You-
find all those,
Trent,
Yeah,
you think
those
we
should
can
be
find it?
pretty, yeah.
plant place and get those.
As long as you get it in a gallon, like.
Want to make sure I have the whole list. Red osier dogwood, Pacific wax myrtle, serviceberry, pine maple, Oregon grape, small variety.
And the native serviceberry, just to be clear, because there's many other choices.
Is that the Saskatoon serviceberry? Did I miss any?
Oh, we want the short Mahonia,
Sounds like it.
compact.
Well, there's Mahonia reference and there's Mahonia nervosa, they're both short.
Right. Compact.
Compact.
There's a variety.
Ornamental
variety, yeah, they'll probably.
I mean, the nervosa is the one that's really small.
That's, yeah, old growth is about 1.5 foot.
Which one would you all like me to seek quotes for?
How does a lot of people put this stuff in the sun and it doesn't like the sun?
Or any of these.
I think the reference is more sun tolerant.
Yeah, I think most of our.
It's almost, I've seen it growing in prairies,
Even the nervosa.
not the nervosa, the
I think that's
actifolium,
a shade out, good.
yeah.
Weapons, maybe?
Across from RAC, Meridian, not Meridian, you know what RAC is? To the west of that is an open field prairie of Gary Oak and Mahonia. But it's growing in full sun. Okay,
Have seen, because I know that you in particular love Gary Oak, I have seen saplings much smaller than a gallon sold $20 a pop at the farmer's market. I don't know if that's something that we want to add to it or not. I'm fine either way, but I hear Gary Oak so often in this room with you all that I figured I would mention it.
You could
I
try
know the
five,
problem
see if
with-
anybody wants them.
Gary Oaks is like, they're very hard to transplant, so you gotta plant like 10 to get one, it
and,
might not be the best.
and they're gonna be, they're a long time and they're gonna get big. And I don't think our audience, it has yards that are big enough.
And for the milk, we bought the showy milkweed last year, which is the native milkweed for this area. Is that the flower that you would like to go with again?
More seeds.
Yes, for seeds.
There are other pollinators, which I think certainly we should have the milkweed, but there may be other pollinators of seed that you could get, even a mix, that people would probably take.
We're getting two different seeds, I'm hearing, the wildflower mix and then the straight milkweed.
So last year we gave away the milkweed, and then I had some leftover seeds from other thing that I had done, which was a prairie mix of flowers, and I had an eco lawn seed. That wasn't as popular. I actually still have some. Those I bought in bulk. The milkweed came in packets, which was great. The other ones I bought in bulk and teaspoon by teaspoon, made all of the things. That takes more time. I could do that if that's what you want, but pre-made seed packets are great.
I agree.
It'd be really hard to, I mean, an Ecolon giving 1 teaspoon, that's like.
Not gonna do
Probably
that
not.
either.
Yeah. Just like.
I think I did tablespoons of that one, but still.
Yeah.
So, have them, an even mix of them.
Sure.
One down.
Yeah. Might be able to get more in one than the other.
And we bought 50 packets of the milkweed seed last year. That fell out, but we gave it out really quickly. 50 again this year, 100 this year, a different number this year.
So if you have more, I think we give away more.
Right, I'll start seeking quotes for that unless you all find a place that has a source that you would like for any of these. Let me know, probably like within the next 2 weeks or so. If not, if I don't hear back, then I will go and do our traditional request for quotes for getting these. So does that cover 2A and 2B, or would you like to discuss 2B more? And 2C, I made handouts. I saw Jim's note that it'd be better to not have them in the bags, to have them loose. The bags are filled with information from Arbor Day Foundation on why trees are cool, how to plant them. I got the same copy of this very old drawing of how to properly plant a tree. I tried to find better ones, but they were all long. So this is a one-pager. There's some other loosey-goosey stuff that is in a bin that Brad left me. That's all stuff from Arbor Day. If it looked like it would be helpful, I stuffed it in the bag. We have some of the armbands still, the pencils, some buttons. Is there anything that you really, do you want me to put together bags, or do we just give away plants and the, plant information with how to plant them? Do you want more information, less information?
Planting instructions are always a winner.
Yes, that's appropriate to give. I mean, I think the,
Hopefully you get a sticker of,
Oh, planting, yeah.
we talked about trying to have, a photograph of the mature plant, what this plant will look like in,
That wasn't on our handout.
Was,
it was, yeah. And I think the posters were popular, the general posters.
I bought frames,
And it might be helpful to have
rubber bands.
posters of the tree, of the plant handouts behind. You know, we put the western red cedar here, and then have a poster behind it. These are the western red cedar, these are the Saskatoon service berries.
That would make selection a little easier, I agree.
Yeah, it may be marketing, but it makes it a little easier for people to say, oh, that's what I want.
See about,
I don't think the bags, I mean, the bags to me are Smoky Bear, fifth grade school handouts. Smoky Bear, I've done a lot of that. So I don't know that the bags are valuable to, what I remember is the people that come for a tree are middle-aged, maybe they have kids with them, but most of them are adults, not looking for a wristband and a sticker or a pin. But it's old stuff. It's been, how long have we had that stuff?
Most of it's
40 years.
Library,
yeah.
the library, we had the kids.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't know that the bag is attractive. Maybe it's traditional, maybe it's worth doing just because we're
Well, if
giving
you
away.
think the library, they were in piles, people could take what they wanted. Like, they
That's
wanted one item, they got that one item, they wanted 6 items, they picked the 6 items.
That's a good thought.
That way, it seems like there might be less waste, because if you get a bag of 10 things, you only want one.
Yeah.
The other 9 is gonna go in the trash.
You could have a place on the table that says, take what you want.
I think that came from COVID when.
Oh, we had to
Brad
hang,
was just
do
putting
the
in
drive-by.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right about that.
So they just kind of left it.
Yeah, I inherited the pre-filled bags, and then I
Yeah,
took them
you're right
apart
about
last year and stuffed them back with the new plant information.
It may be helpful to have, a bag for people to put what they want in, just so that they don't have a gallon pot and pencils and a sticker.
Instead of having it all in a bag, you could have each thing, someone
Take a bag.
yeah.
Yeah, here's a pile of bags, here's a pile of stuff.
Yeah.
Take the bag and take what you want.
We do it that way, I'm happy to do it that way. If anyone has any rocks that you could use as paperweights, that would be helpful. I don't have any paperweights, and having all of those loose stacks of things would be,
And it's got rock.
hopefully they all come home with you too. But if we have a table that says free things, you could think it, bring the ugly rock,
Might bring.
not the special rock.
There you go.
And I can bring an extra table also, so that we have the handouts on one table that are maybe clean. So if we don't use all of them, they don't all get dirty, and then we can have the plants on the picnic table, took up the whole space.
I don't know who did those wooden labels, I really like those.
Tim,
Liked them.
I put the name on, the common name,
It was nice that it wasn't plastic.
yeah, and there's a wooden, written legibly so they can.
That was a nice touch.
I'd like to,
Once we,
Sorry,
so that kind of closes up number 2 for the time being. Reviewing, well, let's go through, 4 and 5 before we go to 3, because 3 is on order for me to have put it on there. 4, working out volunteer staffing by the tree board for the event. So it would be, it's, I have the time correct. 10 to noon, technically 9 to noon for setup. So, yep. Again, this is not a it's a Saturday. Yep, the 20th, it's not, you're not required to be there, but, yeah.
All right.
Tanya's already volunteered.
Thanks.
And if you want to show up for an hour, if you want to show up for the whole time, if you don't want to show up, everybody needs a break.
Right?
No, doesn't have to be tonight, just, think about it.
I'm committing to 11 to 12.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, as we were talking about time. You had conflicts, because there's other Arbor Days going on, right?
I heard there are, but I'm probably not involved this year.
Okay.
I'll keep a log, and whenever you all decide if you want to or not, let me know. Potential tree planting in coordination with other Parks and Rec, Department activities. So they normally get a tree from the Park Foundation that, I can try to meddle in, but I don't know how successful I'll be in determining like which tree it is or comes from or anything. I have no idea. And their first meeting about Earth Day I can't make, so I'll go to the second one, and hopefully they haven't decided the tree yet, but I did ask them, can the tree board be involved in the tree planting this year? And they said, I don't see why not. So if you
Or even a big, like Jim's promoting as a community activity. Like 50 people there to help plant trees, be cool.
you all want to do an additional tree or, to be involved in the Earth Day tree, either one is fine. The mayor normally plants the Earth Day tree.
For some reason, that kind of fell apart last year. There's like 3 people that planted it, and they weren't doing it correctly.
So it'd be great if they could tell us when they're gonna plant the tree so that we can have tree board present.
Well, I'm assuming they're planning at the historical park again.
That tree's still alive, I guess.
We had talked about, a couple of years ago, trying to link this to some
Special
person,
thing.
some person who deserves recognition gets to plant the tree. Assume that would be, staff, water staff person, or somebody that, you know, the city wants to recognize. And this is the John Smith Memorial Tree. Because John Smith has done something great.
I'm not saying a thing about Memorial.
I know that we generally don't put plaques or anything on them because of that.
Name it after somebody that,
Yeah, I would think, you know, the city wants to give, I would say, a pat on the back to somebody. Maybe this is a little way to do that.
Is there any existing, like, volunteer service recognition type award existing in the city we could just kind of tack this onto?
Yes, we have I think a volunteer luncheon. I don't know if there's an award associated with it. I'll ask Todd.
There's already a volunteer of the year type recognition for some service. This can be their
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
spotlight moment.
I've also suggested that the city has begun this tradition of, what's it called, Tumwater Falls Day or something?
Falls Fest,
Fall Fest.
falls, for the
September.
fall, in the fall,
At
at the falls,
brewery park.
yeah.
And I've suggested that the city plant a tree there every year. And they said, yeah, that's a good idea. And I would suggest that if there are other events, traditional city events, where we can encourage a tree to be planted. For example,
Perfect.
when they
There you
dedicate,
go.
It's not gonna be planted, right?
yeah, 4th of July, it's the wrong time of the year, but, you know, maybe there's something we could do, or when they dedicate the new
M&M building.
water facilities,
Mhm.
plant a tree, in memory of that event, or, you know, have the department heads have a golden shovel each, and, you know, something. Just look for more opportunities to make tree planting, or maybe it isn't tree plant, it's plant planting.
Yeah. So grow.
Could be. Yeah, you could have the 6 department heads, or however many there are, each plant a Gary oak.
Depending on how far away it is from a building, and depending on if it's in the wild and urban environment.
Oh, right.
They could kind of compete, see who survives.
Here's your square foot that you're eligible to plant a tree.
Okay, so,
Um,
yeah,
I will ask them to loop us in with the time, and I'll ask, Todd if there's a Volunteer of the Year award already. Also, last year I had suggested for a future memorial thing, I'm just gonna bring it up again, all of the lives lost during COVID as something that is worth memorializing.
and we talked about the city health staff, you know, the extra work they did during COVID, to recognize that effort. I knew Kathy Pace, 30 years on the Helitac, emergency medical helicopter out of Olympic. When she retired last year, there were, 30 fire engines that showed up for her retirement, recognizing this lady who saved people's lives for 30 years. Great, that's what we should be doing.
The last item for my, questions for you all is to review the Arbor Day proclamation and let me know if it's good to go. Also, we can discuss, and, would you like to come back to Jim's comments, before we go to that, or are there any of Jim's comments that you would like to discuss? I'm gonna try to incorporate as much as I can.
Well, we can always read through the proclamation. Mark something up if we see, right?
It's helpful for me if, it could be official as soon as possible, so I could get it routed for approval. But it is January, and that's for April, so I can wait a month if you all wanna take an action in the potential joint meeting next month. The speed of government approvals is slow. It's the same one from last year, updated for dates. Same language that you all approved last year.
I think it's probably fine.
The only thing I think at some point we'll want to introduce is that it's not only about trees. And the proclamation sounds like it's only about trees.
Worthwhile updating second to last whereas to read, the city council has begun implementation of the urban forestry management plan to memorialize progress being made. Done a lot of work since last year. I wanna make sure you get recognized.
All of us.
Like utilizes, what verb strikes you as good? Instead of adopted.
Begun implementation of.
They've implemented.
Oh, it wouldn't be the city.
We've not. The city has begun implementation of.
You know, last line on the last whereas, maybe that's a place where we talk about, about the proper care and planting of plants rather than trees.
For the sake of chronological order, I recommend, swapping that to planting of and care for. Do a lot of technical editing at my day job, and it's not off.
you plant, then you care for it.
7 care for plants.
Planting and care of.
Planting of and care. Planting of.
Care of.
And planting.
I get the planting of and care, but the for is where I'm getting.
Tired from wordsmithing, so.
That must be nice. I'm enjoying this now, but sometimes it can become tiresome and every day.
Are we talking about only native plants? We say here we're repotted native plants.
All native, aren't they, that we chose?
Are we safe in use, we need to say native?
We're promoting. But it's fairly intentional that we chose all natives, I think.
It does say 16th on here.
Is that when she signs it?
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, she's signing it on the 16th.
Do we need to say first, we say here in the third line of the last paragraph, for the first 100 people. We're really not giving a tree per person, giving it plant per family unit, per lot, per, I don't know.
Household?
Speak for yourself. I was giving multiple trees to family use because we don't want any left, I didn't want any left over to
Right.
die.
Okay, so is that okay?
That's fine.
First 100 people get trees.
Whoever was interested, got it.
Don't think I.
Something that I haven't asked yet that would be, useful to talk about at some point, doesn't have to be right now. We had the tree care pledge last year, and we collected people's addresses, and it was like 20% of people were from Tumwater and everyone else was from other places. We don't have a rule, we haven't had a rule, that was just to see, but also to get people to have commitment to take care of the plant and have the address so we might be able to follow up in the future. Would you like to do the tree care pledge again this year?
Only if we're gonna do something.
I put it into an Excel format and looked up where they lived and made a pie chart, but that's likely not enough.
Did we, I think we had at least some conversations with some people asking if they would send us a picture of them planting or any.
No one has ever followed through on the,
I hate doing stuff that doesn't materialize into anything.
I don't have to do a tree care pledge. That's less trees that I have to kill to print the pledge.
But are we going to make any effort to track or encourage people to give us feedback?
That's been something that's been on the memo, and I removed this year because I personally don't have the time to do that. If tree board members, if people, one, are okay with me giving their addresses to tree board members, which is unlikely, then I could delegate to you all and get your assistance with that. There's probably liability concerns about going on other people's property. I'm not allowed to go on other people's. It's complicated. I understand the reason why, and I empathize with that. I personally am so swamped this year that I'm not going to be able to go check up on trees.
Sure. No, I wasn't envisioning really anyone going to check up on trees unless they were asked, and that's a DNR tree specialist or something. But just taking the opportunity or asking people to voluntarily give us feedback on, you know, I'd like to be able to say, tree board or Arbor Day gave away this tree in 2024, and this is what it looks like in 2000.
That's a good goal.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you saying that to?
To the resident, to the homeowner. Voluntarily send us a picture, maybe annually, I don't know, of the tree that we gave them to show us, let them brag, so we can show other people. This is what a Tumwater resident did. Hopefully we want to be sure it's a Tumwater resident.
Who would you be showing that to, I guess is my question.
We have it at Arbor Day. here's a tree that was planted in 1990, 95, 2000, 2005. Here are the Arbor Day trees of Tumwater, what they look like today. And, you know, I got an email I don't know what you call it. Picture of four sisters who took pictures of themselves for 40 years. And then that was posted. And it was just, you know, this is how they changed over 40 years. There's a book called Overstory, about a guy who takes a picture of an oak tree in Iowa, same spot every year for 100 years. It goes on for 3 generations. And he made a flip book of the pictures. Watch it grow. I do that in my backyard on the first day of the month in July, August, and September. Do a 360 in my yard. Helps me keep track of how things grow. I think that would be a selling point for Arbor Day in Tumwater, historically. But, you know, it's not something that I would expect the staff of the city to put any effort into, other than if a resident gives them a picture, then the city saves it someplace.
If anybody, I'm always good at volunteering other people. It seems like it would fall in the communication or outreach department of the city as something that they might want to promote for the reasons stated, but they may not have capacity either.
And maybe it's taking a picture of the Arbor Day tree that gets planted. And then 5 years from now, we know where that tree is. Go back and take another picture.
That seems much more manageable.
Yeah.
But it's been fun to watch the trees at the library grow over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's been done formally about it, but
There's a plaque,
by watching it get bigger. But that's,
there's a plaque still in front of one of them.
there is,
The
yeah.
oak tree, yeah.
There's a sequoia too.
Okay, well, sounds like it's something that had no impact last year. I mean, it neither created any work nor did it create any feedback. And unless maybe we just ask the Earth Day people who are planting the Arbor Day tree, take a picture, and maybe one of us has a list of what the Arbor Day trees have been for the last 20 years. And I volunteer to go take a picture of them. Or
Starting this year.
a picture of one, yeah, we should have a record. I mean,
The
I've
first
been,
one that we planted was like 3 years.
yeah.
That long since they planted the library tree? I mean, I believe
It
it.
was before my time.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's
Wow.
over 14 years.
Wow.
Mike, do you have any ancient history memories of the Arbor Day tree being planted, an Arbor Day tree being planted from your tenure?
Well, that old library, and then we had the tree that we planted for, the gal that ran the library for so long.
Oh, yeah, this is,
I like that idea of starting this year going forward of tracking, the city's Arbor Day tree, and it can, if communications makes this worthwhile, it can be posted to a webpage, and we have our own.
You could
Webpage,
just post
right?
it as like the Arbor Day celebration. Maybe could have the tree date at the bottom, and then just every year when they could go out, take a picture and post it.
Running collage.
Ask our communications.
is there some place where we have a record of Arbor Day trees?
There are pictures from past Earth Day events. Don't know if all of them have the tree planting. I imagine they would, because
They're all in the tree board minutes, but who has time to dig into the minutes the last 20 years? Jim?
not all of them are even still in existence. So once documents reach a certain age,
Oh, they don't. Yeah, what's the retention requirement for board meetings minutes.
I know I was trying to find documents from 2011 when the first heritage trees were designated prior to the code for heritage trees, and I couldn't find any. It was gone. I found a paper certificate in a box
No tree board minutes from that year.
from those years, no. So definitely 2011 prior, they're not.
Start a new tradition. Start
Well-
this year's Arbor Day tree.
In an effort to document that as an ongoing process, is there a way you could write that into some sort of a desk manual for the tree board? Could you put it on the tree board? Could it be a new and ongoing commitment by the tree board chair to take a picture and submit that each and every year? I just feel like this is a really great idea. However, if we're unable to document it as a process that is ongoing and archived, we're gonna be having the same conversation in a few years with nothing to show for it.
We've done that.
Not on the campus, but we have somebody from DNR actually that's committed to doing that.
Mhm. And you documented that commitment somehow, somewhere, I'm guessing. We can do better.
As long as that person's there, it's documented.
No.
Well, the 9/11 tree right here, surely somebody took a picture of that tree being planted. And that was 30 years ago.
Well,
I just know the communication people have been really good about participating in these events.
Yeah, they've come
Since
up
I've
with
been
taking
here.
pictures every year.
So they're already there. They're already taking pictures. I think if they just ask nicely, they could probably post it to a webpage. Have it for each year coming.
Sure, this is our picture archive.
You know what communications does with all their pictures after our first day, Arbor Day?
Probably in the city events folder.
I mean, do they do any outreach or promotion after the event? Say, look what the city did.
2012, 2023.
This is water on tap or. That's the mayor planning the, what was it, a maple or something? That's the cleaning out the ivy.
Cleaning up.
What year is this?
This is 2012.
Years ago. Oh, 12.
Yeah, no picture of the tree.
Well, in 2012, we weren't.
They actually still did the tree
I think last year.
planting. Arbor Day from 2018. I recognize someone.
That's at the library.
Mm-hmm. I can look through these and see if there's old pictures of the tree planting and not just the work. I mean, it's work too. Gosh. There's always ivy and blackberry to remove every single year. It's the same, almost the same project every time.
Not in the same place.
No, they don't really.
Yeah. The odds are it could be.
Maybe every 4 years,
Yeah.
same place.
I can look through.
Well, I could volunteer to do some of that.
Don't have access to it, so.
I know, I'd have to come to your office,
Oh.
but possible.
Feeling the paperwork for IT would be less time than it would take me to look, but I appreciate that. That was item 9.
So we agree that's gonna be a group planting effort this year, the Earth Day people and our tree board?
I have
And the
asked
mayor,
them
hopefully.
that we will be involved, and I will ask them specifically to tell us, loop us in on when they're doing that. And for us to at least, for you all to at least be present to make sure that they're planting it right.
So this would be more towards the end, like 11:30, 11:45.
early. I think that's when they did it last year.
And is the, Parks, the Earth Day people, are they interested in having a Boy Scout troop or a school group or like, capital, are they audience?
So they actually have a competition for Earth Day amongst the different schools. Which school brings the most students, they get, gift cards, prizes for whichever school has the most students, at each event. I think it's like $500 for one of the schools. So it's mostly, high school and middle school students that are in attendance because of that.
It'll be good to get them involved in the planting too, when that happens.
Is there a value to quickly invite, I don't know, like the Native Plant Society or the Conservation District
Want to come volunteer?
come to the event?
I don't think there's gonna be a change in the program, like to allow time for them to, give a presentation or anything, but if they would like to come part of it, sure, that they would be welcome. I don't have the reins on what happens at the Earth Day event in terms of, and honestly, our Parks Department doesn't have the full reins of it either, since it's a regionally coordinated event with the Park Foundation.
Is this, will the governor, will the mayor be present?
The mayor, likely will be present, but I don't know for sure if she's committed. She normally shows up.
Even the former mayor showed up usually.
Yes, she was in the photo last year.
Incentive for the mayor to have an audience? Does the mayor say anything? I mean,
Only says a few words, thanks people for being there, and is involved in the tree planting.
the governor came to your tree planting,
Usually
did the planting. I don't know who did the planting.
ceremonially planted.
Okay.
What do you guys?
Hannah planted that.
So you had news media there, you had daycares, groups there, you had
An
a
orchestrated
couple,
event.
you had a couple demonstrators there who were having problems.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Recall the governor signs, I remember, and one hysterical person who was convinced he was working for the Chinese government, that had to be escorted off-site. But, yeah, I assume the communications people invite Joel to Tumwater Talks
And they put out a press release about the event.
We cover everything?
Gave me a lot of good stuff to start working on. Bring forward whatever I have. I like to know early.
Yeah.
I'll have noticed that by now. Plenty of time to get.
Before your time, sometimes we didn't have the answers so soon.
I'm really surprised, I guess, that people who signed the pledge last year, significant number of them were not Tumwater residents.
Trees, they're attractive.
It's true in other communities too, like Lacey gives away trees every year, people flop them all over.
I remember talking to one couple who were from New York. He was a Schmidt or something descendant.
Really?
His family was from Tumwater, and
Oh,
they
that's
were
Schmidt.
back here visiting grandma or something like that. And so they came to Arbor Day, picked up a tree to give to grandma or something. They probably said they were from New York on the sign-up form.
There weren't any out-of-state people on it.
Okay.
There were some people who signed the pledge and didn't put the address. That was not as many. I have an Excel spreadsheet with all of the addresses. And I still have the copies of all of the tree pledges.
So for a future meeting, just to tie in some other conversations, I'm still interested in what we can do in the fall, like at a park. I think we asked the parks person to make recommendations to the tree board of what park we could buy for them out of the tree fund and plant in the park. So I'm still interested if we make something concrete out of that, maybe in the fall, if we could help
Because
the
it's a
parks.
better planting time.
It's a better planning time, and we can help support the park people, and then again, we can make it more of a community event for that, wherever that park is. Invite the neighbors, you know, to come be part of it, and just kind of a round two, but in a different location.
And would that be the Falls Festival?
Whatever park they want to tree in, is what I was thinking.
Sorry, what's our role in that? What do you see as our role in that?
It could be as simple as just recommending we pay for it out of the tree fund.
Oh, okay, got it.
The preferred planting time rather than April.
But it could be more, I mean, it could be, we could add our involvement in as much as we're have an appetite for it.
Okay.
I'm confident we'll have a planting plan for one of those sites by fall this year.
On the parks.
One of them was the golf course, so that's technically a park.
And is there, maybe we could continue to work with the tour we had last fall. I think in our discussions, we recommended that they do that planting in the fall. Every year, I don't know if the wetlands people are thinking, the restoration people or whatever are thinking, yeah, we want to do one site every year in that September, October planting, that annual restoration or wetlands project.
Is that another gold opportunity for a media event for the community?
All of the parks. Let them know we want to plant trees.
They have an arborist, so
Hiring in April, so
the replacement will be there in October.
the urban forester?
No, the arborist is retiring.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if they'll be looking for arborist. It's not his title.
Oh,
It's
it
just-
just so happened that he was an arborist. We might have an urban forest,
Have one in January 2025.
sustainability coordinator, whatever it's gonna be called.
Either an urban forester or urban ecologist.
And when's that going to council to decide on the budget?
The budget is in the late fall. We'll start to put together, I've already started to put together my budget requests. The calendar for the budget's not out yet, so I'm trying to put my thoughts in Excel so that while I have time to.
We have half the funding for 5 years from a grant, we have to give the city the other half.
Yeah, there are some complications that haven't been figured out all the way, yet. The grant was advertised one way, and, then we ended up getting a pass-through grant that requires a match waiver. We did not apply for a match waiver because we weren't eligible for it, yet we were given this pass-through. I'm trying to figure out, what will count for, like, is it that they will cover the incentives and not we have to negotiate that. The pass-through partner is still working on their contract with the federal government. Once that's done, then we'll start with ours, and I've expressed my discomfort about that change and what that means for what hopefully funded, if that, I'm really, really, really hoping that it doesn't change what they told us that we got. There's a little uncertainty there. I'm hopeful, cautiously hopeful, that we'll still get everything that we've been told. But, yeah, a little weird. I'm still operating as if we're getting an urban forester, and, Councilmember Swartz out at a past, city council work session, called out that part of my job needs to be done by someone that she would like me full climate, and that we can get someone who's qualified for urban forestry to do urban forestry. So that's been mentioned at a city council meeting. I did not ask her to do that, so she's a,
That's encouraging.
and then I told her, hey, we have funding for half of this, that's great, hopefully. We've been approved, but like I said, there seems to be support. Hopefully everything pans out as I intend.
So our next meeting date may not be the 12th, it might be the 15th.
Yes.
So that's,
And I'll let you all know well in advance. Or if not more, I hope I'm not involved in the meetings that determine these things, I get told. So as soon as I'm told that it's official, I'll let you all know.
All right, well,
I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We're out.
Thank you.